In this episode, I have another Samsung Plasma. This one here would run anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days, maybe even a week. And then the problem would reoccur. Now, this one here had been looked at previously and had grounding problems resolved, and this started happening on this one. So I'm going to do a quick check on this and see if it's similar to the one I just had recently. This is a Samsung Plasma that apparently has an intermittent problem. It will run, it could run anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 days, and then it will just lock. And when it locks up, the only way to reset it is to unplug the power, let it sit for several seconds, and plug it back in. So it's kind of an oddball problem. I've run it here for a while. It tends to be more frequent if you're playing back media plugged into the USB input than, say, watching a program on broadcast TV or through HDMI. But it will do it at random, regardless. So I think before going anywhere, I'm going to pull the power supply. And on this case, this is a modern set. This is one of the last generation of plasma TVs. You notice that the board count is down to basically 4 boards. You've got the combination Y sustain and Y buffer boards on one side. You've got your ACOM board on the bottom. You've got a signal board here, which does all the processing and it drives both the Y sustain and the A communication board through 2 flat cables. And then you've got a combination power supply, which has got your X main or Z sustain, as LG would call it, or common mode sustain, as Panasonic would call it. But power supply and X main is one. I'm going to concentrate on the power supply. So I'm going to pull the board. I'm going to give it a good inspection first before doing anything else, and look for things like obvious bad connections. And of course, we'll check for the obvious, the loose ground screws. But the person that owns this has told me that they already checked, and that the ground screws were indeed loose, and they've been tightened, and they are. Well, not real tight, but they've been snugged up. So first things first, let's pull the power board and do a good visual inspection. First things I'm going to do is disconnect the tabs. Now, these are solid tabs that go to the panel. This is like the ground return. Well, it's not the ground return. It's what primes the panel for its charge. These are just solid copper. There's no other traces in them. But I got to get these out of here first. And of course, unplug the other boards. These have got little locks on them, I think. Okay, I got the board out. Let's just set it down here. I'm just going to go over it with a fine-tooth comb and look at it and see if I can spot anything obvious. And just like that, literally, I've been looking at this for about 1 minute. And the first thing I went to was I had that other set that I had last week that didn't even make it out of the shop, and it acted up. And I found the blue cap here had a cracked connection on it. This is in the power supply. So I figured the first thing I'm going to look at on this set is this capacitor. And we turn it over and take a look right there. There goes the phone. Who's phoning me? That was Rogers. Rogers was phoning, trying to sell me a cell phone plan. You know what I said? I said, go back to the bargaining table and settle your strike dispute with your workers, and other words, F off. They just, as of yesterday, just locked out a bunch of their workers that were just trying to get a fair deal, and the company's being a bunch of jerks. This blue capacitor here, take a look. Where is it here? It's right here on the bottom of the board. Take a look right where my thumb is. Do we see movement? I certainly do. That cap is broken right there. That connection. And that, I think, is going to be the problem with this set. Can I get any closer? I'm going to look at some more, obviously, but that's the first one I looked at, and that one jumped right out at me. As soon as I took a look at it, I could see that that connection is broken. So I'm going to do some more close inspection of the board, and then we'll put this back in the set and see whether that resolves the problem for this one, which would be great. So let's check it out. One thing I certainly can say is that we're starting to see a pattern here. This is 2 Samsung plasmas that I've had in a row that have had a bad connection on one of these big box capacitors. I'm going to check this other one over here and see how it is too. We'll check them all. That one for sure. And that would explain why it's shutting down. This is in the high voltage generation circuit. And if it arced, for example, voltage would surge and the set would go into a shutdown and lockdown safe mode. And that's exactly what it's doing. So while my soldering iron warms up, I'm going to take a close look at the other box caps in the other part of the power supply and just see if there's any others that look like they could be ready to go. And we'll resolder them as well. And sure enough, this one here, take a look. This one here is also cracked. So that one's bad. Yeah, this other one looks like it may be ready to fail too. And there's another couple of them down here. These ones are in the AC side of things, so I don't think those ones will be as much of a factor. But certainly those 2 that are in the high frequency side of the DC to DC converter, yeah, they're problematic. I don't see any problematic looking caps on the board. I don't see any caps that are bulging. But definitely those 2 capacitors need to be redone. This one here in particular, this one's really bad. You can even see how loose it is. This one here is also loose and it needs to be resoldered. And on the bottom side, it's not cracked to the same degree, but it certainly looks like it is ready to go. It hasn't failed yet, but it just looks, if we look at the board here, it's right there where my thumb is. And it certainly looks like, the problem with using this monitor, I have to take my glasses off to see it. I'm using my magnifiers to work on the board, and to see the TV monitor for the camera, I got to take them off. But that one there looks like it's also going to be problematic, so we'll just reflow the solder on those. And the other one was over here, right there. Try to do this on camera without getting my head in the way, so I'm kind of looking at the monitor to see what I'm doing. I'm not really looking at the connection I'm soldering, so that I don't get my head in the way, because everyone likes to complain if my head gets in the shot. I can't see what you're doing. I mean, you can see what I've soldered, but okay, those 2 are done. I'm just going to give the board a once over, and then we'll put it back in the set. 2 others that I have identified as looking suspect are the lugs on the transformer itself up here. I'm going to redo those, and I'm also going to redo the MOSFETs, just because I can. It's a part, it's here, and I might as well deal with what looks like could be solder that's getting to the point where it could be problematic. So we'll deal with the transformer first. So that's over here. and the MOSFETs, and in particular it's the gate that is always the one that tends to crack, because the other ones have got eyelets through them, right? So they generally don't have the same problems, but it's the gate is the one that usually goes. And the problem is if you lose your drive to the gate, you're going to end up with MOSFETs that lock on and blow up. So do these other MOSFETs down here as well. Again, it's the gate that I'm most concerned about. Okay, I think I'll mount the board back in the set. We'll plug it in and let this one run and just see how it performs over the next couple days before I send it back out. So I'll mount the board back in place. Throw the ground screws in. Some people have been critical, saying I don't put enough effort into fixing some of this stuff, and you're right. A lot of this stuff's not worth fixing. I don't put a lot of effort into an LED TV because they're a piece of shit. Speaking of which, I have another one here that's mine that blew up during a power surge. But again, I don't put a lot of effort into LED TVs. I don't put a lot of effort into multi-channel stereo systems either, just because they're another piece of crap. They are a dime a dozen. They're complex, overly complex circuits, which have a lot of digital circuits that talk to each other, and it only takes one thing to be not quite right and the set will shut down and create all kinds of headaches for someone trying to service it. They're not worth fixing in the most cases. What I do put a little bit more effort into is these old plasma TVs. And that's because, one, I like plasma TVs, and I'm going to hear it from the ham radio guys about how all they do is generate interference. And, well, plasma TVs are only one source of their interference, and they tend to pick on them all the time. And I say that's too bad if your shortwave bands are noise on them. Being a ham myself, I haven't been able to use the HF bands in years because of noise, and it wasn't just plasma TVs that creates noise. It's everything else. It's compact fluorescence, it's LED lights. It's the LCD TVs, the LED backlit TVs. You don't think that the LED drivers for those don't generate noise? I got news for you. They do. It's not just plasma TVs. Plasma had a bad rap, and plasma TVs tended to draw a little bit more power than an LCD set. But you know, looking at this one here, what is the power consumption rating on this one here? I bet you it's pretty good. Yeah, 67 watts, okay? Look, the 2013 TV, can you read it by my thumb? 67 watts is the typical power. Maximum power, 200 watts. That's if you put up a full white screen. So people saying that plasma TVs were power hungry 20 odd years ago, yes they were. The one that I'm currently using to view my picture on, what I'm working on here, this old beast, ooh, delay, woohoo, This old beast, yes. This one here probably of a full weight screen, you put up a full weight screen, this isn't even HD. This one probably draw 400 watts. And there were some, the HD sets, some of them would draw more. My 63 inch, for example, if I put up a full weight screen, a full HD 63 inch, it probably draws 600 watts with a full weight screen. But average viewing, it's maybe 150. Put a hockey game on and yeah, it's going to take a little more power because it's all the white ice. But regular viewing, no, it's not. They're very efficient. The least efficient sets, and this is what I normally use as my monitor when I'm working on the main bench, I can switch my HDMI back and forth. These sets were the ones that actually drew the most amount of power. That's the conventional LCD televisions with the fluorescent backlights because the lights are running full time. This set here draws 475 watts, whether it's got a white screen or a black screen or it's just sitting there turned on. 475 watts for a 32 inch. Ridiculous, but it draws a lot of power. And all of the old LCD TVs, they drew more power. Plasma TVs got a bad rap, but plasma only drew power when they were pumping out a full white screen. And this set here would have been made when plasma TVs were basically at their pinnacle of production. It was the last generation before they discontinued them. I love them. I think these are great televisions. Just reconnect the tabs here. These are the common mode tabs, and they're just a solid. I mean, they branch off into a bunch of little lines here that go to each individual cell. These are common modes, so these are in a plasma screen. You've got two sets of electrodes. One of them is controlled from Y sustain, and the other one is controlled from the common mode or the X main. And that's this one. So plug these in. And these are just connected in parallel with each other. So this is just one solid copper sheet, and say it goes off to the individual cells. Anyway, where was I going? Oh yes, plasma. This one here was the pinnacle of plasma. They had the board count down. This was the least expensive of the plasmas to make. Once they got the board count down, that set I just showed you that I was using as a monitor, that one there has I think 17 boards in it, if I'm not mistaken. I forget. Go back and look at the video. That one had a shorted coil in the power supply for the analog tuner that killed the set. But I think it was 17 or 18 boards. It's loaded. I mean, the set weighs a ton. It's over 100 pounds for a 42-inch set. It's just ridiculous what's in that set. This was here as the last generation of plasma. It was, say, they had the board count down to basically 4 boards for everything, and the power consumption was right on par with your LED TVs. So LED TVs, they typically run in that same power range as well, 60 to 100 watts. And again, their power will vary depending on the brightness because they ramp the LEDs up for brighter scenes and they dim them down for darker scenes. So the power consumption on them varies as well. I don't know about OLED sets. They're probably a little more efficient. I really haven't done much on OLED. I've seen them in showrooms. I've never worked on one. I've never owned one. Someday I might like to get one, but I've got a few of these sets to go through before I will invest in getting a new OLED set. Anyway, this is ready to go. I'm going to plug some content into this thing and turn it on, and we're going to let it run. I plugged in my USB stick, and this is some of my own content here that I'll put on my aquarium. And there it goes. So that's what my aquarium looked at one time. I'm down to, I think, nice digital break up there, that guy, and I think one of these blue ones, little blue ones. I'm down to 2 fish now. This tank has been dying for years. I haven't done anything. All the coral is pretty much gone, which is unfortunate because it was really nice. The problem I ran into with maintaining this tank, I 100% squarely blame local city ordinance and municipalities for this, because here in the Lower Mainland, local governments have taken it upon themselves to listen to animal activists and banned pet stores from selling saltwater fish and supplies. So in the lower mainland of BC, Burnaby and Langley, I believe, are the only two places that are now allowing the sale of saltwater fish and supplies. So Delta, Vancouver, Richmond, Surrey have outright banned the sale of saltwater fish, caving into the nutjob animal activists that claim that it's cruel to catch saltwater fish out in the wild for people to put in their aquariums. Because of this, and no stores being able to stock them, except for, I think there's two of them now, one in Burnaby and one out in Langley. Because of this problem, other stores won't carry the supplies. Things that you need to maintain your aquarium, like chemicals and HID metal halide lights, for example. You can't buy them anymore. And that's what happened with my corals, is my lights burned out. I was unable to get new lights and was told that if I wanted to maintain it, I had to invest in the new LED lights, and it was going to be around $2,500 to retrofit my aquarium with the new LED lights. And I thought, I'm not spending $2,500. So when the lights failed, they got dimmer and dimmer. The corals died off, and that was the end of that. And I say, I've been for the last couple of years, I've just been in maintenance mode, waiting for the final fish to die. And they've died of old age. I mean, most of them were well over 10 years old. Some of them can last a lot longer. These little blue chromuses can last a long time. Clownfish can live 30 years. The one that's remaining in my tank, I put it in I think it was 2003. I think it was 2003. It's one of my originals, and it just keeps living. I keep feeding them and clean it once in a while. And the two fish that are in there now, one's a damselfish. They can live 35 years, and clownfish can live something like that, something ridiculous like that too, in captivity. So out in the wild, an average life of a fish might be 6 months before a bigger fish eats it. But in an aquarium, they can last a long, long time. And this big blue tang and this yellow tang probably would still be here if they hadn't committed suicide by jumping out. They found the one place in the top where there was an opening, and they managed to jump and get through that opening. Found one of them on the floor at the back, and I found the other one sitting on top of the glass cooking under the lights. So yeah, that was my sad story for my aquarium. I did this video, I'm gonna say this was probably 2010, so 13 years ago I did this video. And my intention of this is the day that the tank is finally taken down and removed, I'm going to mount a TV on the wall where it was and put this video on and just leave it playing. And when I want to look at the fish, I'll just turn on the video and I'll have my aquarium that I had, and I won't have to feed them, and I won't have to clean them, and I won't have to top up the water and test the water for all the pH and chemicals and so forth. It'll be my maintenance-free aquarium that I had, that I set up. And it's shot in HD. This TV looks like it's only a 720 set, but it looks good. So I'm going to let this thing run, and we'll say thanks for watching. I'm 100% confident. As soon as I saw that capacitor that had that cracked connection on it, I'm 100%. I'm going to throw the back on this set now and just let it run for the next couple days. But I'm 100% sure that the problem with this one's been solved, and it's not going to shut down. But if it does, I'll let you know. Thanks for watching.